maybe maybe it was simpler to just invite you to a meeting on the spot.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure.
That work okay for you?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so I was looking at, oh boy, the last part of the book, when it introduces Moxie's podcast. And there's a long description about what we were before. It sort of was where we left off. What were we before we were all these labels?
Yeah.
And before all of that, and you go through quite a few eliminations.
Yeah.
Before we were this, and this, we were our own true nature. And the two of them sitting on the bed, it just, that is a very that for me is like that divinity page. It's very powerful to strip all those things away and say what's there when all that's stripped away. What is that? And then it goes on into the conversation about the podcast and the idea that everyone's changing all the time.
That's right. That's right. We arrive changing. What? We're born in a constant state of change and stay changing.
Yes. And this page that says, when the world is the way it should be, the way it can be. And it goes on and concludes, people's imaginations will be bigger. And I think that that's a really important notion to play with, to think about, is the paradox of removing things so that things are bigger. That when the more you take away, it doesn't become smaller, it becomes bigger. And then their conversation and the whole idea about there being no trouble at the end. So there's a lot there for me anyway to unpack.
Yeah.
But that statement about people's imaginations being bigger is there twice that I've seen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, the crisis of imagination.
Yeah.
That is very much informed by Reverend Angel.
Okay.
And then since I put it in the book, I've heard it also a lot. It's coming from a lot of different places.
Okay.
It was coming from my internal place, and it was coming from, I've heard Reverend Angel talk about just I think the language she used one time was a crisis of imagination. And I remember her addressing white people in the room and saying, you cannot imagine my liberation for me.
Right.
And it was, it's that, and it's also, I've recently heard, I don't know, sorry, I want to be like super articulate, but I can't right at this moment. But that I just want to give credit to
right.
other places where I've heard it.
Yeah. And I think you just said something I just want to put an emphasis on.
Okay.
That is that you're referencing this as a crisis of imagination.
Yeah.
And a Black, this is your Reverend Angel, that has been referenced in past recordings as well, is stating what makes it a crisis of imagination is you can't imagine my liberation.
Mhm. Yeah. And you
That,
can't
oh
as
my
I
God.
won't- and you can't as in I won't allow it.
Yes,
And also you can't because your imagination won't allow it.
right.
But there's no each of us has
Mhm,
capacity to
mhm.
increase our imagination and bigger in the sense of like where Adrienne Maree Brown and everyone who
Yes,
Adrienne Maree
yes,
Brown studies and
yes.
is inspired by all the names
All the names,
all
yes,
the names
yeah,
because she's not just her thinking these
right,
things
right.
but the imagination that allows us to think in that small
Mhm.
um, choice that has implications. One bird flapping its wings, a murmuration of birds, each of them flapping their wings. So it has elements of that imagination thing, and the two of those children saying,
Yeah,
"You can't imagine us.
right, exactly.
We need to do it though." And that's why they need to be in that room left alone.
Yes,
And in the sense of not in the sense of just like leave me alone, like let me be, not leave me alone, like everybody go away so I can be unsupervised, but that too.
yeah,
But the fact that they're able to sit together not talking too is says something about their relationship.
yes.
There's two children who can sit together not talking, and like that's a question. Have you ever had a friend who you could sit together and not talk and look at the sky and each of you be
Right.
in the imagination of your own being?
Yes, yes. And when you're sitting in those spaces, if the spaces are not seen as, if the spaces are also not labeled, if they're not the sky, they're not the trees, they're not this, they're not that, if they're just beings, if they're also divine,
Yeah.
and we don't need a name for them, right? Then
Mhm.
when we're sitting together and we're not talking to each other, we are engaged with those divine beings around us. If you're and I think that there's a lot of wisdom in indigenous people whose voices are also missing, so missing,
Mhm.
that the labeling of that as the other, even the natural world is the other.
Mhm. Something I have to go to get to.
Yes, it's something I'm expecting something from it.
Right.
That's not it. It's kind of gets mixed up. But I like this crisis of imagination piece, because that's another way you're asking us all, and you're asking yourself to go there. Go get you some of that. That ability to let go of so much that something else can get bigger.
Mhm.
And
Space enough to accommodate your whole being.
right.
And oh shoot, what was I thinking? I lost it.
Well, there's a Rachel Corrie poem called "Let Me Stand Alone," and that I clearly she wrote before she was killed. But I'm gonna find it and make sure we put it in whatever kind of little journal creation we can get for this book, because she also talked about, as a young person, about standing alone in those spaces and just leave me alone. Let me stand alone, in myself, in my true nature.
Yeah. I'd
Yeah.
love to hear that poem. Because I mean, when you think about kids, it's like you're the oldest child.
Right.
You're one of the twins. You're the one who does sports. You're the one who dances. It just, they
Yeah.
need help that it's like, yes, and
Mhm.
when you lift that away,
Mhm.
or or tune into something deeper, you can also be just what that is.
Right.
So
Right.
then those things can come and go, and you can still be you.
Yeah.
And this little notebook too, I want to look at what they say. Their little notebook says, our bodies
Oh, yes. Yeah.
learned earth, outer space,
Yes.
nature, constant change.
Yes. Yes.
Stand back, behold us, God, imagine you.
Yeah.
And I just thought, let's play with those words.
Right.
That's where they're, that's a beautiful jumping off place, flying place, sitting still place.
Yes. And in her case, in Rachel Corrie's case, oddly enough, her true nature meant she was going to stand in front of a bulldozer and be killed so that the Palestinian people could be heard, and here she was, a young girl in America, and I think about that a lot in terms of divinity, that her divinity, her willingness to stand alone and to be in her true nature led her to
Yeah.
seeing a world that could be for people she didn't know.
Right.
She could imagine their liberation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And was willing to die for it.
Mm.
What would a world look like if you could imagine a world where we were willing to die for each other's liberation? That's what I think about a lot. And when I thought about Rachel Corrie's story connected to those last pages of your book a lot, about how do we come in contact with, and and then when you said the thing about Reverend Angel, which is not in the book, I would not have thought of that. I realized, yes, it's the question of what should it be? What would it look like if everywhere I went, everybody wanted to die for my liberation? But I like,
Yeah, and not, yeah, it's
what would the world
it's
look
that
like?
thing, that life-death thing of like, are you willing to live for me too?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Or just, yeah, it's so, and it does cause trouble. That's the thing. It does cause trouble. When you feel it that strongly that you're standing in front of a bulldozer,
Right.
and they will run you over.
Yes.
That's big trouble.
Yes.
Avoiding that trouble was not possible.
Right.
Without compromising her calling into that spot.
Right.
But it does cause trouble. It causes trouble in a family if you stop eating meat.
Yes. Yes.
Like big trouble.
Big trouble. Yes.
And you have, and it's constant.
Constant.
You make the decision,
Mhm.
and and then to disavow whiteness, and then to be queer, and then to be for the liberation. And
yes.
So that's why, in the book tries again and again just to keep it on that, instead of like this page, beauty will shine out of us like starlight.
Right.
Is a different choice than I can be gay if I want to. It's just like,
Right.
We're so past that.
Yes. Yes.
We're not, but
Right.
we are. Like, what is that even?
Yes.
It's none of your business. I mean, tell me about sex, grandma. Resolve that. It's none of your business.
Right.
I don't know why we even have to talk about this. I'm trying to be starlight. I don't know what you're doing,
I love it. I'm trying to be Starlight. There you go. That's why those images, when I see those images, I think of this part of this book. Yesterday, when I saw the first image, and I thought immediately
Yeah.
of this part of the book.
Hmm.
You can't, like, I thought of all the people marveling at that image who also will never see that in everything right in front of them. It's just like you said, we already do.
Already do.
Yeah.
And then it's not right. This page with Rashida Tlaib and Ayanna Pressley and Ilan
Yes.
Omar and Alexander.
Yes. Yes.
Corey Bush is not there, but in spirit she's there.
Right.
Love the world into balance, not
Yes.
vote blue this fall. I don't care about that.
Right. Right.
Love the world into balance from wherever you are. Like the place that we're at and the divisions are very extreme. The trouble is
big.
breathtaking.
Yes.
When the mail that I receive after somebody sees this,
Yes.
and what I'm accused of for saying let's love the world into balance, and I think about
Mhm.
what you said about like the indigenous wisdom is missing, and it's like just that word, it's a profound missing like it's like like I'm looking around like where is it, and it's like it's right there, you're missing it, it's right, it always was there. And then missing in terms of the missing women, the
Yes.
so the trouble is here, but the love is no trouble. I mean, that's what the kid gets to.
Right. Right.
I like, someday maybe I'll understand the hate that creates that creates the maybe. But love, and if we went there, then the imaginations would expand, and because they will, and because they have to, and they will because they have to, and they have to because they will.
Yes. Yes.
But thank you for seeing and feeling in this book what I meant to put there.
Well, every one of the books is its own universe, and I think that with this book, I feel like we all can step into the universe, like it for lack of a better word. It brings us right into what I really feel like we're on the cusp of anyway. I think there's some major rumblings going on in the energy, and you can call it trouble, absolutely.
Yeah.
The responses to the rumblings are getting more pronounced, and so the rumbling gets more pronounced, and I always think of that, the geological relationship that produced the Tetons, for example. That's how this book feels to me. It feels like everything, this pressure that produced those mountains, and can you bear the pushing, and just like you're giving birth, or any of the other things, that can you bear that,
to allow the mountains to be mountains because they want to be.
Yes. Is your imagination opened up enough to letting them emerge, to letting them stand as whatever they are?
Yeah.
This feels so connected to natural relationships that, like, if you call them missing, or you call them, that we're disconnected from them. And I think about, the ability to go and experience Jesus, to have that conversation is part of that emerging. Allow yourself, what would you say in that conversation? What do you need to out of that
Something
conversation?
that people could ask.
Yes,
They were working with this book.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's
A lot in there.
it's enough. It's meant to be. Every single book is meant to be just enough on the page
Right.
that people can. Stuff comes up.
Yes.
Emotional associations, attachments, even sentiment, like seeing that little boom box
Yes.
and the record player. Like, what's your relationship to that kid's room? And mom's room. There's leopard print pillows on her bed for a reason.
Yes.
This woman who has the Virgin de Guadalupe on her wall.
Right.
And goes to a Catholic church, but is like, ooh, I don't know why I did that. I need to find God somewhere else. And has that, a really sexy room.
Yes. Yeah.
And like, let's all that, and a father who just hears his child's voice and says, keep it coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
A light touch, but so strong.
Right.
And where have we experienced that? And where have we wanted to? And
We wanted it. Yes.
that night, that's, the starry skies around them in that truck when the child plays in their authentic voice to their father. I mean, think about how many of us
Yes.
can be authentic with our father person or cannot. I mean, there's all of those stories are like fascinating and to be learned from.
Right. Yeah. And I just hope that as people embrace this book, that concept of imagination, divinity allows for all those things to happen, allows for the father to be the way the father is and the mother to be the way the mother is. And because they have engaged their imaginations, they are connected to what could be. And I've always said, as it could be, as it would be, as it should be.
That's nice.
I always say it to kids. What would it look like?
Yeah. Because it's allowing in the sense of not giving permission, but allowing in the sense of like labor contractions, like breathe evenly so that this contraction can happen.
Yes.
In more space.
Yes. And it all goes around in a circle instead of a line, that as it would be, as it could be, as it should be. I think of it as a spiral that goes in and then back out of itself all the time. So maybe I feel this book more than any of the other books, each one of them is, it's a walking and talking and breathing and dancing and swimming, experience. It's so active to engage with each book. This one, for me, is active in a whole different realm. That's what happened for me. And when I saw somebody read that and say, I've never read a book like this before. And my immediate response is, no, you haven't.
Me neither.
Because of the crisis of imagination, right?
Right. Or just, I mean.
But you imagined it.
It's less of a crisis in childhood.
Yes. Oh,
right.
absolutely. Yes.
We remember like you had this whole world that makes sense about like where the scary places were, where the magic places were.
Right. Yeah.
What happens in the dark.
Yes. Yeah. In childhood, there's no room for until somebody creates the room. But if nobody ever creates the room, then
I stomped on something you said just a few seconds ago, and it probably was, I wanted to have heard it. It was right before, I'm sorry.
I don't know.
Okay.
About as it could be, as it should be, that part?
No, more recent, right before I said, because children's imaginations are sufficiently.
Right.
example.
Oh, that somebody would have to build a room. Is that
Right.
what you meant?
Thank you. Yes, that's what I mean.
Somebody would have to intentionally build that room where, I do this workshop with teachers about, of all things, the alphabet, just the nature of reading.
Mm,
And the room that gets built for a lot of adults is the room that identifies you as a non-reader
mm.
early.
Oh,
No imagination about what else could be going on.
yes.
And I always tell the story.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's the same process. It's like I'm building a little room over here that says you shouldn't wear a dress, you're a boy. Every little room has its little, sign on the door, right?
Yeah.
And if you're put in the room so many times, you might stay there, you might believe I'm a non-reader. I will never be a reader, to use that same analogy.
Yeah.
And then I have a little girl years ago who was put in that room, stayed in that room till 3rd grade, and then made her way to me through a series of, people who sent her to me. And I handed her a book and I said, what would you do with this book if we didn't try to make you read it? I mean, that's what I ask all kids who are identified as non-readers. What would you do with this book if we didn't try to make you read it? What would you do with this? What would you do with this dress if we didn't tell you couldn't wear it? What would you do with this if we didn't tell you this about it, right? So,
Wow, you removed the.
yeah, let's just pull way back here and get out the Hubble telescope, right? And this child became one of my most important teachers in my teaching life. She opened the book and started singing the entire book. She could sing the words. And of course,
words or the words that were on the page?
the words that were on the page.
Oh, for Christ's sake.
I know, see, that was my reaction. Oh, for Christ's sake. Damn, I didn't imagine that could happen.
Talk about missing it. That's wonderful.
Yeah. And I realized, oh, yes, I should know this. I've taught so many traditions that were where the knowledge was sung to the people,
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh, okay, she can sing the words, but she cannot speak them. What is going on?
This
Right?
is
Yeah.
not the problem.
Yeah. Right. And instead of it being trouble, which it had been for her so far,
Yeah.
instead of it being trouble, it's now I'm interested,
Yeah.
No
trouble at all.
And so I always think that the antidote to trouble, if you as an adult are experiencing, this is trouble for me, that this boy wants to wear a dress, or that this girl wants to do this, or this person wants to do that, whatever, or doesn't do something, how about the medicine for that is interest?
Yeah, curiosity. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Which you've said many times. Get curious, get interested, and then you can start to imagine.
Right.
I mean, so that's a question for me, for you. Is that path something you think can be helpful for people?
So helpful in all because it started with divorce is the worst.
Right.
What if we were curious about how our divorces affect our children?
Right.
and what's this like for you?
Yes. Yes.
And what if we extend, for me personally, what if I extended that to myself? What did it mean to me when my father took the bedroom furniture out
Mhm.
that night? When he moved that bedroom furniture out, that's like seared into my body, into my grief.
Yes.
So imagine if it were no trouble, and then just be curious about
Mhm.
what was that, and then all of the books. What if we were just curious about our own
Right.
desires and longings and
Mhm.
and each other's?
Mhm.
Um, instead of worrying,
Mhm.
instead of trying to control outcomes,
Mhm.
and it's not like things don't come out that are going to cause, adults need to take care.
Mhm.
Like in You Ruined It,
Yes.
right? You can be like, oh my gosh, she still loves her attacker
Yeah.
or abuser.
Yes.
Oh no. It's like, no. Keep the oh no. Like take the oh no, oh God, what does this mean? It's not useful.
Mhm.
Just, can you bear it? That is what is so.
Mhm.
And what do you need to be able to bear it? Go
Yeah.
get that. Not from your kid. Go get that somehow.
Right.
But I don't know if I answered your question. I just,
Well,
and it's,
yes,
but
you did.
curiosity is
Yes.
what I hear too. I mean, that's so much from like any Buddhist teacher that I've ever listened to. It's just like that curiosity,
Right.
and that gentleness.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, the paths just open up. The song comes out with the
Right.
book open.
I haven't seen it happen since either. I've
Yeah.
never seen another child do that. And it's always, I always felt like, well, that was, some kind of karmic sacrifice she made for me to learn something. I don't know, but yes, you've answered the question that this idea of interest being a pathway to imagination may help some people who are stuck in trouble, in the land of troubles, that how do you breathe through the trouble? How do you make your way through the other side of it so that you can get to the imagination?
Get to the imagination, to the possibility, and to the place of not knowing,
Yes,
and you can stand it.
yes, and not being so sure of yourself.
I don't know exactly how to love you.
Exactly.
All I can do is listen as well as I can, and care as much as I do, and bring curiosity, and make sure there's plenty of space.
Yes. Right. Well,
Thank you, Michelle, for always asking such
wow.
wonderful questions.
Yeah, it's yeah, I don't want to, every time we kind of wrap up a book a little bit, if you want to ever call it that, I don't know what you could say about it, but for the purposes of people being able to listen to you talk about the book, if it brings more access to more people, I know you can go into communities, and we want that too.
I want that so much. I don't want to do anything else.
Yeah, is there any, from the beginning of our conversation about this book to today, is there anything there for you that remains unsaid? Is there anything at all that you would like to say about what you don't know? And I bring it full circle because when we first started talking about it, we started with imagination, that the title was about what we haven't imagined yet.
Yeah, right.
So you know, if there's if there's anything more you would want to say, please
Yes,
do.
this book, you know, I didn't offer any what the librarians and the people in the industry call back matter, the stuff at the back, the activities and the,
Yes, yeah.
and the questions. Like, we really went for it, and you ruined it. You ruined it. Has so much of that.
Yeah.
What you don't know doesn't have that, and what you don't know also, you know, just my associations with this book are that it was being made during the summer of 2020. I mean, it had been being made in 2019 as well. All those spaces, all those environments. I was creating the environments for months and months and months before I could even get to the people, because the environments were so important to this book for me. And I feel that this book, you know, it was so complicated. There were so many layers in terms of the actual creation of it. And there was so much pressure on the art director and I to be able to communicate with each other. And then the other artist in the room who was doing things in Photoshop all the time to help me with the drawings that didn't, I was like, she doesn't look right. Her chin is not in the right position to express the emotion that I'm trying, you know, like we were really in it. And I just feel like this, I got it this far.
Yeah.
And I believe that there's another life for it.
I do too.
I feel like this is,
Yes.
there's a musical or a play, something that children know what to do with.
Yes.
Or a puppet show, or a crank, you know, like there's something else for this book beyond what it is. It's almost like one of the reviews referred to it as a bit static because of the repetition of images. And it was a criticism, but it was useful to me. It was a criticism that is useful to me, because I do think there's more places to go with it. And first, I see it on a stage. And there were meant to be more people at the roller skating party. I just couldn't make them all in time. I was making this book up all night.
Right.
And, you know, just like I'm staying up all night again.
Yes.
I'm staying up all night again. And
oh, wow.
So there's more. And then it was time. It just had to go. And we had pushed it as far as we could. And so I'm not disappointed in it. It soothes me to be able to answer these questions with you. It is so generous of you. It is so what I want. It is because I believe it has more to offer that I wasn't able to do and someone else will. Maybe.
Oh my gosh. Well,
I'm putting it out there, and thank you for asking so that I could.
As you know, I am my own next stop is to be with a composer.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
You know, I think you've articulated really well what I wouldn't feel like it was. I wouldn't have noticed there was any static in it. What I noticed was that it was so wide. You referred to wide open spaces in our first conversation, and it feels like a wide open space.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, and I would love to see that workshop where
maybe we workshop it. That's a great idea.
I'm trying to stop myself from.
Yeah, we're gonna get cut off. And
well, and planning when anyway.
No, we need to plan.
I should be just saying I love you.
I love you.
And there's more to do, of course.
Okay, and to
Thank
not
you
do
so much, and to not do exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Bye.